I've got two beverages. I've got one water and one Brew Daddy sized coffee cup. So, yeah, I said goodnight to the littles. They're sweet and wonderful. And let's get started, everybody. Welcome to Adam Makes Beer. My name's Adam. Thank you for joining along with the February 2024 live stream Q&A podcast. Still getting used to saying podcast. We've got some channel all-stars in the chat. Anyone from Spunding and Vert. We got my man Jamie Tripp. We've got Lil Barn Brewing, September and June, Trevor. Baby, we got it all. We got it all. It's going to be a good show, man. I'm excited. It's, I don't know, lots happened. In the last month, I was over at the Ohio Craft Brewers Conference. That was fun. We'll touch base on that here in a little bit. But, well, shoot, let's get into show notes, and we'll take it from there. September and June said that he has one of the mugs of my mug. The mug he speaks of is the for the first time ever, the fireplace played an ad. Now, this is not how it's supposed to be. I've always been afraid that this was going to happen. And now it's happening. So I need an ad-free fireplace, apparently. But yeah, you know, there's an increasing number. I don't want to create this dead air, but if somebody wanted to go to the Adam Makes Beer merch store and copy and paste that link and throw it in the chat, check it out, baby. I mean, we've got the OG Brew Daddy mug. Brew Daddy mug, hands down, is the highest purchased item in the shop. Believe it or not. And yeah, so I mean, it is what it is. But let's get down to it. Adam Makes Beer is now a podcast. Check out Spotify, Apple Podcast, and see all of the long-form brewer interviews we've done. After you subscribe, please leave a review and comment as well, because it really helps support the work I am doing. Also, if you are new to the channel or podcast, go to Adam Makes Beer on YouTube. Click the playlist tab and see tons of info, brew days, technique videos, tutorial videos. Now 608 total. Bam. As always, if you're getting value out of this content, please follow, rate, like, comment, and share with your brewing friends and craft beer enthusiast homies. And if you have the means and feel as if my content has benefited you, consider a channel membership for $2.99 a month. It gives you priority for Q&A live streams like this and quarterly merch drawings, or dropping a super chat tip in the comments or chat. All that stuff is very much appreciated, but only if you have the scratch, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up this month, February's Industry Pro live stream will be with Julian Trago of Beechwood Brewing, February 13th at 7 p.m. That's coming up. That's next week, people. I will be posting on that. Get in any questions you can. We're still wrapping up exact topics we're going to be discussing, but you're not going to want to miss that. Julian is a smart guy. He has roots back to the Brewing Network, where when I first started listening to that podcast too, I believe both he and I were homebrewing at that point. And I've listened to some interviews with him preparing for this interview, because I'm trying to get better. You know what I mean? As an interviewer, I'm trying to tighten up my game a little bit, become a compelling conversationalist, you know? So, you know, but cool guy, really nice guy, knows his beer. He's got a list of awards as long as my arm, and he and I are going to be talking beer. So you're not going to want to miss that. As I mentioned, Bondi Pauly Brews is in the chat. Welcome, brother. And also, September and June, also as a proud owner of an Adam Makes Beer hoodie. There's two versions. I have this one right here with the 4 elements of beer on it. And then on the back, it has the same thing, but larger. I can hold this up for you right now, but check this out. Boom, baby. Adam Makes Beer. Why am I so bad at holding this up? Oh, I'm becoming disillusioned. Boom. Adam Makes Beer, son. Adam Makes Beer, son. So nice hoodie. I wish I also had one in black, and I'll probably be ordering one of those soon for myself. But this design is also going to be on, I made it myself and I'm proud of it. This design is also going to be on maybe a coffee mug, and get another coffee mug in the store. Maybe a t-shirt. It's going to be summertime soon here, ladies and gentle persons. So yeah, I'm going to be throwing that on a t-shirt. You have the square logo, Adam Makes Beer, t-shirt, hoodie, bro. It's all good. Just get it. Clothe yourself. Wrap yourself in my merch. I would appreciate it. It all goes for raising these kids, man. Sometimes I've been on some other streams and people are like, buy me a round of beer. Dude, help feed these kids. I mean, for what it's worth, baby. I mean, ultimately that's my responsibility. And we do, and we're fine. But you know, never hurts. Never hurts. What else? The Ohio Craft Brewers Conference was in lovely Toledo, Ohio, and we had an absolutely tremendous time. It was cold. It was cold in Toledo, single digits, with the wind. It brought me back to home, baby. It brought me back to Michigan. Made me think about those cold winter days. But it was cold there, man. A little snow here and there. I don't know. I've got a soft spot for some of those towns where the downtown area still has some of those big old classic brick buildings. I always like that. It was a cool spot. It was a good time. It was good to catch up with people that I know and love from the industry, and also to run into so many nice people. I have to sincerely thank everybody that came up and said hi at the conference and shared stories with me. And everybody was so appreciative for the channel and the content, and for answering, you know, their questions on here and things like that. It was really special. It was really special. Made me feel very, very good. It's nice to meet people that are enjoying the content. Thankfully, nobody that wasn't enjoying the content talked to me. So that's always a plus. But yeah, I went there and I did my talk on content creation. I might be seeing if I can get a copy of that to post either on podcast, video form, something like that, and we'll see how that goes. The content creation talk might not be exactly down your alley, but it does give some background into the channel, and also some of my motivations for it, what I'm trying to do. So it might have some interest out there. Also, you will notice on the channel, I am dialing up some content with our friends at Cold Break. I remember the first time I saw a Cold Break jockey box, I was used to those janky red and blue boys that they sell, like, you know, around. I won't name names. And I was used to those. And first time I saw a Cold Break jockey box with all those steel plates backing things up, securing it. It was sweet, man. And I scored a cool Adam Makes Beer branded Adam Makes Beer jockey box. And I'm starting to do some content with it. I did just kind of a general walkthrough. We're going to do like an unboxing type video, and with a little bit of explanation about what a jockey box is and how it works. But then I'll have some more content coming up with that. So if and I can say this like completely, like I feel good about it, man. If you need a jockey box, they're the best out there. Good folks. Check them out. And there's actually a link in I might be able to put it in the description of this, but if you go back and find the jockey box video that I did, there's actually an affiliate link in there. So if you do make a purchase of some cold break stuff, use that link and I'll get some reimbursement on it. So very, very cool. And yeah. In the chat, we've got Jamie Tripp in September and June talking beer. We also have James Miller in here. James, welcome, man. James says, hi, I'm from Amelia. I love Sonder. I drank like 5 points of your wit on opening day. LOL. That's awesome, man. That's good to hear. We appreciate the support. September and June, are those jockey boxes you speak of cold break, coil or plate? They're coil. And everything on them is stainless, man. Like no joke. It's a very cool rig. And you can put a beating on it. The main thing is September is the plate, because like where the shank goes through the front of the cooler where you're going to be pouring. There's a metal plate on each side of that, on both the inside and the outside of the cooler. So when those shanks get loose and you have to tighten them up, you're not just tightening and pulling them through the plastic of the cooler wall, and you're not getting beer leaking in there. And they get gross over time. I mean, you're a vet. You know what it is with those jockey boxes. But these are really, really sweet. You should check them out. You should check them out. And then continuing on. Hey, I had again, thanks to everybody that came up and all the positive words at the Craft Brewers Conference here in Ohio. It was just really a blast. It was really a blast. Again, thank you genuinely. I've been having some issues with the DMs over on Instagram. Usually I get questions via DM. People slide into my DMs. But they've been now Instagram has, without I don't know, like just they've been going overboard trying to filter out like all of the adult content that gets like dropped in your DMs, and like people asking me questions. And so I actually, because I was really, once a month is the only time I go through my DMs on Instagram to prepare for this show. Pardon me. And I looked at like the throwaway stuff, like the garbage type ones, and there was a handful of questions in there. So if you don't hear from me immediately, it's because I really only answer those once a month, and or some of that stuff might went to junk mail. So hopefully that wasn't you where your stuff went into junk, but we'll try to find them and work it out as we go here. But speaking of working it out as we go, let's talk about our fine sponsor at Blickman Engineering. Blickman Engineering has been the pioneer of nano brewing, and they have helped hundreds of successful breweries achieve their dreams since they started with one-barrel systems in 2006. Now offering a full suite of brew houses up to 15 barrels, skidded and insulated, matching cellaring equipment, keg washers, grain mills, and more sized specifically for the nano brewer. Blickman Pro brewing systems are competitively priced without sacrificing quality, and the simple design and factory direct support from our brewing experts get you up and running faster than anything else on the market. When you're ready to go pro or just kicking the tires, be sure to reach out to them for expert advice and a partner to help you through it all. Turn your dreams into reality by reaching out to Phil, Tom, or Josh at ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Again, that's ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Blickman Engineering Pro Brewing is proud to be the equipment sponsor for this channel and is committed to helping every brewer, no matter where they are in their journey. So what's good in the chat? Listen, you're not going to, I'm not going to read everything that happens in the chat. All right. But sometimes the shenanigans in the chat just blow me away. All right. Another channel regular. We got Hugh in there. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. Man, it's a packed house already. It's a packed house already. So do get into the chat if you have brewing questions. I do have a lineup pre-prepared, but always looking for good questions coming live from the chat. So speaking of which, first question comes from Robert W. on LinkedIn. That's right, boy. I'm on LinkedIn. I spread the content indiscriminately. LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and my newly launched Friendster page. Robert W. on LinkedIn about the sterile loop. I did a video within the last month on the sterile hot water loop that we've run at Sonder Brewing that we use to sterilize equipment. Cool setup. How often are you checking the water in that looped HLT? When he's talking about the HLT, we have two. One explicitly for the sterilization loop, and then just a standard HLT for brewing purposes. I'd imagine that it would pick up chemicals and debris after some use. So kind of nutshell, I did actually answer on that platform. And my typed out answer was great question. With the SOPs that we have in place, which include a full water rinse of cleaned hoses, etc., then full rinses of implements to be sterilized, we don't really have that issue. That said, our sterilization water is tested weekly. So all of our hot side water and cold side water is tested weekly. Hopefully that answers your question. So what I mean to be saying is if we're worried about getting chemicals into that sterile loop, when we hook up to the sterile loop, it's just a process piping that runs through the brewery, and there'll be two valves that are pointing out to you, so you can actually create your loop. So say you just want to sterilize a hose, so you can hook it from one to the other. But then actually also in the main line, there's another valve, a bypass valve that you can close, and it would force all of the water to just go through the hose and then back through the sterile loop. Okay. So before we actually take any of that water and run it back into the sterile line, we actually blow through that. Okay. So all of the hosings and all the rigs that we're going to be, or implements that we're going to be hooking up to the sterile loop will be rinsed appropriately, rinsed to pH neutral during the cleaning phase. And then during the sterilization phase, we run hot water all the way through that implement again until we're hot on the other side. Okay. Then we hook up and open up that loop, right? So it definitely does help to reduce that. It helps to have very, very tight cleaning SOPs up front, right? Which we do at Sonder. And that's really the nuts and bolts on it. But pH is tracked and a range of other things. I am not super trained up in the lab yet. That is something that Dylan does. Dylan is in charge of that, and he's a Steelers fan, you know, so not related to anything, but Dylan out there right now somewhere is just dreaming of Jerome Bettis and Jerome Bettis, you know. So, but yeah, he does all of our lab stuff. So I could actually get up to speed with him a little bit on all the stuff that's tested on that front. But yeah, weekly, D-Dog will run all of the checks on all that water. So hopefully that answers that question. And yeah, it's a pretty sweet system. If you haven't checked out that video, you should. What do we got going on here? Paul Bondi Polly Brews wants to know, how's the metric going at Sonder, Adsy? Easier than Freedom units? My head has not been in the brewery as much lately. Right now I am working on I'm working on a little bit more HR stuff. I have a bunch of performance reviews that I'm working on, and a lot of energy goes into that. I really want to put together a program, a tract for the people in the brewery for like educational, professional growth. So anybody that wants to kind of continue learning and continue pushing further down the line from where they're at right now, I want to have a program set up for them. So I'm looking at stuff like that. But yeah, I'm doing a little bit more performance review stuff right now. But as far as the metric units go, it is getting a little easier. I had to do a little bit of research for some mash profile stuff to answer some questions today, and so I had to convert some numbers around. But it is becoming a little bit more native. It's going to take me some time, especially since that's not the primary focus of my job. But it'll come with time. It'll come with time. September and June. Yeah, Dill Dog. He likes, first name Dylan, last name Dog, and you can just shorten it down to Dill Dog, double D's, because of Dill Dog. I mean, that's just how I roll. Next question comes from Chris Palmer on Facebook. Homebrewer here. If I started mashing on the higher end of the temp range and let it cool to the lower end of the mashing range, do I still get the same amount of fermentables as if I started lower and ramped higher? What you're going to do is you're going to make a different beer because you're making different sugars, right? So if you start lower in the temperature range and ramp up, that lower portion of the temperature range is going to create more short chain sugar or more readily fermentable sugars by the yeast. As you ramp it up, you will be going through a temperature range that will encourage a little bit more long chain sugar creation. And also remember, the lower the temperature, the longer that chemical reaction is going to take. So as you ramp it up, you're actually speeding up the rate at which you're converting starch to sugar, whether you're turning them into short chain or long chain. So if you started higher and then let it ramp down, probably drop down, what you're probably going to be doing is creating a situation where you make a very dextrinous wort, one with a lot of long chain, non-fermentable sugars. Okay, that's more than likely what's going to happen there, because there are different enzymes at play at those different temperature ranges, and they prefer to work in those ranges. Small caveat. A part of me wants to mention that with a lot of modern malt, those conversions might be happening far faster than you think they are. All right. So just for fun, on your own system, I think it would be cool to just do a small mash, just yourself. And so it doesn't have to be big. Do the math. Do it in some sort of insulated container, but mash in just like a little mini thing, and make enough that you can have multiple gravity samples. And I think it would be interesting for you to mash in on your little, mini mash, but don't confuse it when I'm talking about, like, that's not like in homebrew terms, but I'm just talking your small mash. Have that small mash, be large enough that you can take multiple measurements, but mash that in and then take a sample immediately and test how much sugar is in it. Wait 5 minutes, pull another sample, test that. 10 minutes, do it every 5 minutes. And I think you might be shocked at how quickly that starch turns into sugar. Just shoot for a standard kind of a middle of the road 152 to 154 range. Something that gets you a little short chain, little long chain, and kind of see how that works. So yeah, was that a typed in question? Yeah, Chris Palmer. That's my take on it, man. Let me know how it works out. And also, a lot of times I see people adding things like home brewer here. That's great. You can let me know you're a home brewer. But sometimes people type in just a home brewer here. Don't do that. When I was, and something you might not know about me, I don't know if I told this story before, but back when I was doing stage performances in my late 30s, I started doing some like local, like musical theater, like community theater stuff. And when I was in Mary Poppins, I was in the chorus, and I used to tell people I'm just in the chorus. And all those people that had always, this was the first time that I had ever done a musical, like in my later 30s. And all those people would always holler at me and say, "Don't say you're just in that." All right. But it's the same thing with homebrewing, man. There's some baller homebrewers, and there's some baller pro brewers, and there's some booty homebrewers, and there's some booty pro brewers. That designation doesn't always mean something. So if you want to tell me you're brewing on the home scale, so like I have a better understanding of that, but never apologize for brewing for the love of it. That is what amateur means, right? Amateur. Look up your Latin roots, ladies and gentlemen. Love, baby. Let's see here. A couple questions from the chat. September and June wonders why Sonder uses metric. My boss Chase, that's what he came up using at New Belgium. New Belgium not New Belgium, at New Glarus. German, thoroughly German brewery. The brew house that the brew house that they use there is in metric. And he came up straight from high school, started working on the lowest level and worked his way up in the company. And so his entire brewing training was in metric. So that's why that is. But yeah. A great question from Hugh. You're gonna make me click this question, and so it'll be on the screen, so everybody's gonna see your screen name. But it is what it is. Great question from Hugh. Long one here. Sorry, no pun intended. Does Sonder acidify mash water before introducing grist, as Mr. Brungard suggests, or are you guys doing it like Cartridge used to? So interestingly, the water profile at Cartridge and Sonder, even though they're only miles apart, is wildly different. And the Sonder water is way easier to brew with from an adjustment standpoint. It's we have to use far less acid in order to adjust our mash. But the water makeup at Sonder is such that I don't have to adjust there's no need to acidify the sparge water at all. So it's pretty sweet. I remember when I was first there on brew days and taking samples into the lab to test pH, and I was sweating when I was thinking about I'm like, well, they didn't add any acid during the sparge. I'm like, geez, I wonder what the pH of this is going to be. And it's right in the pocket, man. They just have super easy to work with water. I think there's some sort of tie-in to it's right near P&G and Procter and Gamble, and there's probably some specs that they need to hit there. P&G carries some weight, baby. And so yeah, so no, we don't have to do that. Appreciate the question here. And I'm always bad. I'm not great with names always, but Gear Kelmer asks, sorry for asking, first time live. First of all, welcome to the chat. Is it possible to ask questions live, or do they have to be sent in before going on? If you send them in, it's easier for me to access and plan for. But you can also, as September and June recommends, let them rip live, baby. Drop those questions directly in the chat. And so we're going to give this a shot. Next question comes from Gear. Hey, Adam. Gear from Norway here. That is beautiful, man. That's so cool. It always blows my mind when we have people outside the U.S. Watching the content. It warms my heart. Love your videos. Well, thank you. I wonder how much it affects the beer if I don't dump the yeast before dry hopping, or in general, cold crash and conditioning. And then he continues a little further down. There are sometimes not the capacity available in a home brewery to do that. Okay, so we're talking on the homebrew scale, and that does factor in, because a lot of times, not always, because people have crazy gear, conical gear at home and everything like that. Or at least for me, that's conicals at home is crazy. But I think in general, when yeast is done doing its job, so not just fermenting out fermentable sugar, but also cleaning up diacetyl, cleaning up any acetaldehyde, so any green apple, any butter. After it gets a chance to reabsorb those fermentation byproducts, you do want to drop temperature on that, and you do want to get it off the yeast. Reason being is long-term storage on yeast can lead to yeast cell walls breaking down, raising the pH of your finished beer. And the longer it goes on, it can contribute more and more intense flavors. People will talk about, rats. What's the terminology people use for dead yeast? It'll come to me, or somebody will put it in the chat. But typically those flavors can get, sometimes people say like brothy or meaty or like burnt rubber. All right. So nobody's coming through on the chat with me for my brain fart here on autolysis. Yeah. The breakdown of yeast cell walls. So that is what you want to do. So when you say, I wonder how much it affects the beer if I don't dump the yeast before dry hopping, or in general, cold crash and conditioning. Now, listen, when it comes to dry hopping, I have plenty of times dry hopped with the yeast cake still present. I think you'll be fine, right? But once you're done with your dry hop and those hops have dropped down and they're covering up the yeast cake on the bottom, I would try to get that cold, and then I would try to get that removed to another vessel. And I know sometimes you can be limited in the number of vessels you have, but maybe you can try to schedule out a little bit. I wouldn't want to leave it on there for a really long time. I mean, a week might be on the long side, but I tend toward, just getting rid of that stuff as soon as you can. But yeah, if you have another fermenter, if you're just going to take it from one fermenter to another, if you don't have a keg to rack it into or something like that, just make sure that every vessel that you put beer in after fermentation is purged with CO2 gas, right? You want to be evacuating that new vessel of the atmosphere in it that can oxidize your beer. All right. So yes, Gear, this is how you do it. So yeah, drop those questions. I appreciate you listening, man. Hugh, I love you too, man. Mash water. Trevor Daniels in the chat. How much attention do you pay to magnesium in your water profile? Not that much, man. I do make sure that there's a couple different autolysis. Yes, Strivas, if I'm saying that correct, and Hugh is in there too with it. Yes, how much attention do I pay to magnesium in my water profile? There is an upper limit of magnesium that you want to have in your water, where I believe it can make your beer. It can stimulate the colon, perhaps, and might make you poop your pants. I do think there's an upper limit on that. I would dig up the Water Book by Jay Pizzle, John Palmer. By the way, John Palmer is going to be appearing on the Industry Pro lineup here in 2024. Try to contain your excitement, ladies and gentlemen. But I would dig in there for an upper level on magnesium. Now, you might be asking, a lot of people may have low levels of magnesium, and it's one of the reasons that you never really have to think about it. But there are different salts that you can add. If you don't want to be adding, if you're trying to avoid calcium, there's different dances you can do with the different inputs of salts. So you can dive into it a little bit on that. But the magnesium levels by me are so low that it never really comes into concern for me. Appreciate the question, Trev. Cowboy Brewer on the scene. Hey, and Gear, thank you, brother. Appreciate you watching, listening, what have you. Cowboy Brewer in the chat. Any updates on whether you or any of the Sonder gang will be going to CBC in April? I don't know. We shall see. It would be a lot of fun, and yeah, but we'll see. I'll definitely give you the shout if anybody is going to CBC and I'm going to be there. You will know it, and we will slow motion run to each other. It'll be like a movie, right? Like the guy sees somebody, right, locks eyes on something and starts running in slow motion, and then like the other side. But the other side, like you can think it's a guy like running this girl, but it's actually there's this dog, and the dog is excited to see the guy, and the dog's running toward the guy, and then they're just gonna run toward each other and embrace, when they're finally together. I'm the dog in that analogy, but that's what it would be like if I were at CBC and we met. So yeah. Let's see here. Paul Bondi Brew. Hey Adam, you mentioned burnt rubber from leaving a beer on the yeast cake for too long. My last batch had an ever so slight presence of this. Will it condition out? What's the best way to get rid of it completely? On the back end, I don't know. I know sometimes. So to me, that autolysis aroma is very akin to sulfur. And I know that sulfur is volatile and that you can scrub it out of the bright tank by off-gassing the top of the tank, bleeding some gas through it. You can volatilize some of that sulfur. But I'm not sure if it's the exact same compound. Some of my ignorance surrounding the deeper sciences is going to show here. But because there is some sulfur-like component to that autolyzed aroma, potentially some of it could be scrubbed. I do also know that contact with copper can help to scrub sulfur. But yeah, I'm not sure, man. I've got a hunch you might just be kind of stuck with it and might be looking at a situation where if it's not servable and it's very low level, you could have another batch of it, clean, and maybe blend that out. But again, only if that's very, very subtle, right? Bad beer is best to go down the drain. And there's no shame, man. I mean, I've put brewery down the beer at every brewery I've worked at. I put beer down the drain at every brewery I've worked at. So better to do that than not. So appreciate the question. Let's see, man. The chat is popping, baby. The chat is populating. Hugh, I was just asking about the acid in the mash water. Yeah, we do need a small amount of acid in the sparge water, nowhere near the volume. I use less acid mashing in at Sonder, where the system is twice as big than I did at Cartridge. That's how much of a difference there was, brother. Sorry if I missed that out. What else? Cowboy Brewer, always a thrilling listen. Listen, I appreciate it. Hopefully you're talking about me and not like something that you're watching in the meantime. September and June says, I'm gonna pimp my A&B stuff. Are you talking about in Vegas? Are you going to Vegas? I don't know. I'm trying to make connections here. Little Barn Brewing. This is something that I'm really not good at. But let's read it, and I need to do more research on this. Little Barn Brewing, I generally like brew malt forward German lagers. How can I brew one with lower calorie and alcohol content? You know, a very simple way is to make a regular one of those beers and then cut it with boiled, deaerated, carbonated water. That's always a possibility. You know, water backing a beer will obviously, you know, adding water to it will cut the calories. It will also cut flavor and body, and drop that down. That's one possibility. But there's also, you know, an increasing number of low alcohol beers being made, and I think I have, some. I don't know if I have questions coming up later. I need to do a deep dive on some of these new NA yeasts that are out there. So mental note to me, or somebody leave a comment in the not in the chat right here, but I don't know. Maybe when this video posts, or one of my, or just any one of my videos, ask a comment for me to dive into the non-alcoholic yeasts that are available now, because I need to I need to research it, and I've got a lot of things going on in my head, and it's hard to keep track of. But that would be a good note for me to make. What else? What else? Cowboy Brewer has his amber at World Beer Cup. Yeah, we got a handful of beers from Sonder. We got a medal for Kolsch last year. So fingers crossed that beer does pretty well consistently in competition for us. So would love to run it back. I don't remember if it was GABF or if it was World Beer Cup last year. I actually took a picture of it. Do I have my phone in here? They just they had the award hanging up. Let me see if I can find it. It was boom. It was World Beer Cup last year. Can you see? Bladow. In Kolsch. Kolsch is a big category. I didn't realize that and until we are entering it. That's a category that you have to put a lot of. I think it's a 12 can rather than 8 entry, or 6. I can't remember. That's a big boy. I mean, it's not IPA or anything, but you know. Next question comes from Slugger NL on Instagram. What is the best way to dry out a counterflow / plate chiller to prevent mildew or mold? This is a hard one. I'm assuming you're talking about kind of like long-term storage. Gosh, was this one that I wanted to do research on, and I forgot to? But so regardless, you know, your instincts are correct. Anytime you have a liquid in there, it can break down over time. You can have microfilms, different things like that. As far as A storage solution, I'm going to have to do some work on a long-term storage solution for something like that, because really I'm not certain that you get one of those dry, right? I mean, there's so much surface area and there's so many nooks and crannies. Potentially you could attach like some compressed air, not at like a really high pressure, and just like blow it through there for a while. I mean, until it runs dry. I guess that's an option. But big picture, the real key is having some baller cleaning practices, right, between uses. So if you are laying that thing down or storing it, making sure that you have some killer cleaning SOPs to get that thing back up and running again, in case you did have anything in there, a little microfilm or something like that from some water that you couldn't quite clean up, something like that. I think that might be the bigger picture takeaway on that. But I will do some more digging on this. It's a question that I've received a few times, stuff like this. So I need to step my game up and see what you can do. Little Barn Brewing talked about baking it at 300 for 2 hours. That may be a good idea. The concern for me is I'm not sure what the failure points are on the metals and gaskets and all the things like that hold that thing together. So yeah, but baking could do it as well. I just can't say for sure. But Slugger, I appreciate your question. Next question comes from Jeff Winkleman on Facebook. Please explain hop utilization percentage differences between a small pilot batch, 10 gallons, which I believe is 100%, and a large commercial batch, 5 barrels, which might be 40% or less. Why is that? Do you have to use more hops to achieve the same IBU? How do you adjust your large batches to achieve the same beer you brewed as a pilot batch? There might be a little bit lost in translation here, but the main idea is as you go to larger volumes, you're going to get more extraction out of your hops than you will at smaller volumes. And let's talk about why. This is a temperature and contact time game, right? You will be isomerizing alpha acids. So remember, your alpha acids are your component inside the hop that will tell you how readily or the intensity of its the percentage will tell you the intensity of its bittering capacity. But alpha acids are the component in hops that ends up being converted, isomerized into isoalpha acids, I believe, off the top of my head, or bitterness, right? So that game is a time and temperature game, all right? And it's not just at boil. You can be isomerizing alpha acids at far lower temperatures. And now it's going to decrease. That isomerization is going to decrease as the temperature decreases, but it still happens. This is why you can have people on the pro side that are doing whirlpools at 160 degrees for their haze boys, right? They're dropping the temperature of their whirlpool down to 60 and then dropping, 2 pounds per barrel in that kettle. And they're massively cutting the utilization that they're getting on that. But we've gone a little too far. But as long as you have alpha acids in that kettle, and it's in a hot temperature range, really anything 160 and over, and it might even be lower than that, but 160 and over, and then time that ticks on, you're going to be creating more and more bitterness. So if I were to scale the exact same amount of hops, that would give me 10 IBU in a 10-gallon batch of beer and 10 IBU in a 10-barrel batch of beer, and to scale that directly up, there's going to be an issue, because that 10 IBU worth of hops that's going into the 10-barrel batch is going to be hot for a lot longer, therefore creating bitterness for longer than your smaller batch will. The smaller batch is going to cool faster as soon as you turn the heat off of it. It's going to cool faster, and you're going to cool that full volume underneath or below isomerization temperature far faster than you will that large volume, right? Because for me, it takes me at least 15 minutes to whirlpool, get the kettle to drop fast enough to be able to start dropping wort off it, usually closer to 20, 25 minutes, depending on your kettle dynamics. And then it's a half hour to 45-minute runoff, right? So there's all this additional time. So what you're really seeing is you're getting more efficiency out of those hops, right, than you would on a smaller scale. And that is why, because it is a time and temperature game. I appreciate the question, Jeff. Hopefully that answers your question. Next question comes from Jamie Tripp. This was a little bit part question, part shout out, if I'm remembering correctly. Jamie Tripp. Hey, Adam, my man. Chilling up here in Canada. The brew house is buzzing as we have 7 of 8 tanks full. 3 lagers, 1 porter, 2 pails, and an Irish red. I'm loving it. My question, that was my addition of I'm loving it. My question is one of NA brews versus low ABV direction. I'm scared to death of investing space in NA, which no one wants to share secrets on, but I think I can make a fabulous 2.5 to 3% hoppy pale. All the best to you and the family and the Sonder team. Our team just won an honorable mention as number 2 brewery of the year for 2023 at the Canadian Brewers Choice Awards. That's awesome, man. Get up there and check out Jamie Tripp. He's in Canada. He's got test batches, boy. Look him up. Get in there. Good man. I think we're kind of having 2 conversations here, Jamie. Does the consumer want NA beer or do they want low alcohol beer? I don't think, and maybe, and this is gonna be regional. Like try it out. But I have a feeling that the NA thing appears to those people that are or appeals to those people that are either doing dry January, they're doing the sober thing, or they're trying to reduce their drinking. Things like that. And so I think like walking a middle ground, I think this is kind of one of those all or nothing games, right? Run out a small beer, especially if you can small batch it, right? And see how that goes. And see how that's received. The NA thing can be tricky though, and this is again another reminder to me that I need to be digging more on these because there are products out there there are yeasts out there that will help you create an NA beer, which means below 0.5%. There are stability issues with these things though. They don't have the obvious benefit of alcohol from a stabilization standpoint. You have to be adjusting pH on those to make sure they're food safe. There's a whole range. There's a whole range of things that need to be considered, and I believe the Brewers Association has started to publish some notices on it at the very least, let alone literature. I'm not sure about literature just yet, but yeah. So yeah, man. I mean, give it a shot. I'm also partial to if there's some NA beer out there that you like. You can buy a keg of it and put it on draft, man, and see if it sells. Now, I know people like to support local product. They like to drink your brand, what have you. But sometimes people, our eyes get a little big when we see that thing. I'm not sweating NA that hard as like a threat to craft beer or anything like that. So, I think it'll have its time. But it's still a fraction. It's still a fraction, it'll be interesting to see where it tracks. But that's my take on that, Jamie Tripp. Appreciate all the love coming from Canada. Srivas Nunez. would you be interested in making a Facebook group for problem solving brewer conversations for your fan base? So I was just having some thoughts recently. First of all, thank you for the question. There's a couple of things here. I'm about at like I don't have too much more time to do what I'm doing between my day job at Sonder and then like my side hustle passion project with the channel, right? And that's not like a complaint or anything like that. I obviously I love my real job and I love doing this as well. So it's nothing like that. I don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to deal with something else, another element like that. Okay. All of my focus is really on having good content, and finding as many creative ways as possible of getting it in front of people. You may have noticed over the last few weeks, I've been playing around with YouTube Shorts. That has been helping the channel quite a bit from a growth standpoint. And I'm utilizing an AI editor to do that. And so it doesn't take a lot of steam for me to post a short a day. So, I'm kind of working on that. But then to get specifically to your question, Srivas, dude, Facebook is rough, and online message boards are really tough. I was just looking at the Brewery and Planning Facebook page, and there's a number of them on Facebook. And first of all, it's kind of you to think that there would be a community of people that would want to get onto that and everything. But it just so often turns into people policing each other, and like people just being mean to each other for no reason. Like it turns into, I almost said it would be Lord of the Flies. You know what I mean? Like it seems to get cutthroat and weird in a hurry. Don't let I won't say no off the get-go because it's something I have to think about, and quite frankly, it depends on how much energy I would have to put into it. But we'll see. I'll think on that. I will post this as a question on as a full-on video for YouTube, and so leave that in the comments if you feel as if there's a that there would be some benefit to that, and just give me your thoughts on it. We'll see. But Srivas, again, welcome to the channel, and thanks for contributing. Dante 502, welcome, man. New member. We love that. We love seeing those memberships come in. $2.99 a month to get you priority for questions for the Q&A, and it's very much appreciated. Once again, if you have the scratch, I appreciate it. If you don't, keep enjoying for free, baby. That's how the internet works. Let's see here. Yeah, Cowboy Brewer, we could do moderators in there. Dante, just getting back into brewing after 10 years, enjoying the technical side of the content so far. Well, dude, I tell you what, if you weren't here since the beginning of the stream, we got 608 videos over here at Adam Makes Beer, so you can just start picking your way through them. We appreciate to have you on board. Welcome back to the I'm assuming hobby, unless you're getting back into it career-wise, but either way, welcome back. And let us know. Three of us, great source of new questions for the live streaming content. That is true. That is true. Yeah. I'll think on it. I'll think on it. If it has to be honest, if it has to be something that is self-policing and doesn't, and I don't really have to do anything other than to get questions out of it. But I don't have the time to. So this is why I don't answer questions on like literally like underneath comments and stuff, because I just don't have time to. So like if you guys wanted a thing where It was like our little community talking beer. And it would be a way of harvesting questions for the live stream. Then that would make more sense to me, because I just don't have the time or energy to be answering them, like live in there. You know what I mean? Aspirations of a career side one day, man. Well, listen, there's anything from full brew day stuff to check out the tab marked leadership too, because I give advice to people thinking about getting into the field, stuff like that. Again, not that I've got it all figured out, but I've been around a little bit, and I've seen some things. So there might be some value for you in there too, brother. So next question comes from Shahart on YouTube. Shahart. Shahart. Yeah, I used to use Lutra a lot, but I stopped using it in favor of room temperature fermentations with 3470, pressure fermented and not. The pro to pressure fermentation is free carbonation. And they had the question of why is this called 3470? Why is that yeast strain called 3470? So first of all, just a couple of notes. Gear, thank you for the membership. Very much appreciated. 3470 lager yeast is something that people get very uptight about and very traditional about. I have no problem with people fermenting at 48, at 50, or whatever traditional thing they want. But I'm hearing increasing stuff, even from lab folks, from yeast labs, saying that yeast strain has a lot more flexibility, a lot warmer than some people think. So anyways, just some thoughts on that. From my understanding, that it is called 3470 because it is the 34th. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me. Oh, okay. So that means that this yeast strain is the 70th isolate of strain 34. Okay, so 34 is the actual strain, and the 70 is represented of it's the 70th isolate that they pulled off of that. Adam, is that true? I don't know. I read it on the internet. I try to please people. All right. I'm running. That's not true. I'm not running myself ragged. I'm just trying to be dramatic and funny. But no, honestly, I think that's it. I mean, could I be completely wrong? Is there some yeast guru out there right now, just like ring around your neck, Croissant staining your elbows, and you're saying, Adam, that's not true? Maybe it's not. That's the information I have. All right. Best of luck to you, Shahart. Next question comes from Limestone on YouTube. Great content, man. 2 exclamation points. I really enjoy your videos. I'm becoming a pro brewer, and your videos have helped me a lot transitioning into the pro side. Could you please recommend books for pro brewers more on the operation side? Things like what chemicals to use for CIP and how, sanitizing. I'm struggling to have a plan how to do all the cleaning and sanitizing. I'm watching all videos I can, but I need help on the exact process and chemicals. We are about to receive our equipment and we'll start a microbrewery on the sunny coast, Queensland, Australia, very soon. The Australian Adam Makes Beer following is growing every day. Tip of the hat to Steve Hendo Henderson, the great podcast that we had a couple months ago. If you missed that, go back and check it out. But yeah, man, you know what I would tell you? So first of all, if you haven't already, and maybe that's what you're implying you did, go back and look at all of the videos I did on baseline concepts of CIPing tanks, and actually show you how I do a traditional belly wash or just pump wash, a non-CIP a non-CIP skid wash with the equipment in the brewery. That stuff is all in the tutorials portion of the playlist. Check that out. But then also, a great book right here is Brewery Cleaning, Equipment Procedures and Troubleshooting by Richard J. Wrench. And this name always reminds me of the television series Arrested Development, and there's a private detective with the last name of Wrench. That's what I always think about. This is a very deep dive. It's not a huge book, but this is a product of the Master Brewers Association of America. It's a nice book to have around. Get in there, dig into it. It's probably going to be a deeper dive than you need, but it's a good reference point, and worthwhile. And it's not crazy expensive. Yes. Yes. So this is what I would recommend. This is what I would recommend. And then pair that up with the tutorial section of the Adam Makes Beer YouTube page, and you're gonna be off and running, baby. Was that Limestone? Limestone, thanks for the question. Appreciate it. New member from Gear, new member from Srivas. Man, people, I love it. This is beautiful. I'm so appreciative. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, I was going to take a sip of my beverage. Hey, September. Jump in and post a link for the for the merch store, if you could, please. I don't know if that was already done, but check out the merch, and I'm going to have some new stuff coming too. And if you buy something, get a picture of it on whatever social media. I'm on everything, and then tag me. I'll repost it, where I'm going to blow up your social network. It's going to be wild. So do it. Spread that love, baby. September, thank you very much. Hopefully that didn't sound bossy. Prodigal Punker. I think that's the first time I've seen this name in here. Welcome, welcome. He's also recommending Technology Brewing and Malting by Wolfgang Kunze. Is the Brewer's Bible, but it's hard to find and expensive. Maybe. Next question is coming from The Beer Project on YouTube. Sup, man? I once had the opportunity to be in a chat room with a brewmaster from the Czech Republic specialized in Pilsner beers. One attendee asked him the final pH of his beers, and he shared that he was always aiming for 4.7, just above safety levels. At first, that sounds like he's getting into flabby tasting realm, or flabby tasting beers. But maybe the lower attenuation creates a different perception. I don't know. Cheers. I'm gonna weigh in on this without super strong takes. All right, because this is part of the trick with what we're doing, and we're gonna go culinary here, ladies and gentlemen. If you ask me a question, and this is like this, I'm not like trying to be smart the way I answer this. I'm not trying to be cute. But if you asked me, oh, okay, I want to make marinara sauce, pasta sauce, okay? And I'm going to have my tomatoes, and my tomatoes, they're going to have some acidity to them, right? So what do I need to do to balance that acidity as far as sweetness goes? I can't tell you the answer to that, because there's multiple factors that are going into it, okay? First of all, it's the raw materials themselves, right? The processes that you're using while making the sauce or brewing the beer, right? All these different approaches. And when you really think about it, there's so many variables to different recipes brew houses approaches. Um, I believe if he says that his Czech lager is best at 4.7, I believe him. And I believe that, you know, if it's not flabby or weird at that level, I believe him, right? It's because there's so many different elements that go into it. For me, with the brewing processes that I use, typically I'm happiest with those lagers when they're in the 4.2 range. But you know, I've also seen some lagers that are closer to 4, even 3.9, and they're very nice, right? Um, so like when we talk about these things, it can be rule of thumb, but it's also like keep an open mind, keep asking questions, and taste those beers where they're at, right? I think that's a big lesson. Is I try very much not to get fully ingrained on one concept with what works and what doesn't. Okay, so yeah. Great question, Beer Project. Appreciate. I think this might be the first time I had a question from you, so very much appreciate it. September says not sure that's a hyperlink. We'll see if it works. If you can't link it, that's fine. I'm still learning how to do things in here myself. But yeah, Wevdan, welcome. It's the first time I think I've seen you in the chat. It says you have a question. Go ahead and drop it in there, and I'll try to get it answered here in a few. The next question, though, comes from Tim Rehack on YouTube. What happens when your beer is over 4.5? Do you add acid to get it lower at packaging? I can't speak specifically to like what I'm doing right now with Sonder, because that's not anything that I've come across there. But in the past, when I specifically started targeting post or finished beer pH, and I started experimenting with it, yes, I have adjusted beers down with acid. I was using phosphoric acid to do that. You could also use lactic as well. But yes, I was adjusting beers down post. And what I was doing is you could actually add that to a fermenter or to a bright tank and an inline transfer. You could add it, you know, as the beer is being racked in through, as long as the pressure is dropped low enough and you're not going to blow your face off with the PRV. Have your pressure drop low enough, get that PRV off of there, add that to the top as the head space is being displaced, right? You can do that so it mixes. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of options, but yes, I have. And when you find the pH and test different ranges for different beers, and when you find what you're happiest with, keep running, replicate it. Appreciate the question, Tim. Yeah, and Srivas has a great point. Just to follow on Adam's answer to the CIP question, whoever your chemical supplier is, get their technical support number and sit down for a call with them, and they'll usually help you answer most of those questions. Guaranteed. That's you can get some good hands-on process stuff from me, but a book like this and then working hand in hand with your supplier is a great way to go. Next question and first channel question, I believe, is from Wevdan. Here I go again. Hey, Adam, question. Purging PAA or peracetic acid after doing CIP on same day of brew just before knockout. Let it drain and try to blow as much as possible down with CO2 before letting the work go in. Yeah, that's what I would do. So I'm actually a big fan of that. I like to get that tank spun as early in the morning as possible. When I say spun, I mean turned with peracetic acid. Again, that tank already needs to be clean, right? So starting with a clean tank, whatever processes you need to do to get that tank clean, and then go to your sanitizing cycle with PAA. One of the keys is, as always, with all chemicals, make sure that you are within the appropriate range for it to be a no-rinse sanitizer. But I love to circulate that chemical, drop it down, and then I have definitely put 5 psi of pressure, of CO2 pressure on that sealed tank, and blow it down a few times before I get ready to put yeast in there or wort in there. And yeah, give yourself a chance to flush that out, because it is an active oxidizer and it can add some oxidative flavors to your wort as you run into the fermenter. Great question, WebDan. With questions like that, you're allowed to ask questions anytime around here. Next question comes from Terrence Boyle on YouTube. I feel my story in brewing is a bit more unique than most. When I finally got in the brew house at my first brewery, they had a 200-barrel, 4-vessel, fully automated system with yeast management capabilities as well. All beers were step mash, no single mash infusion. In your opinion, is step mashing superior to single mash infusion? If I want to dry your beer, what would be good temperatures and times for a step mash? If I wanted a little maltier beer, how should I approach to step mashing that? I know there are other factors to consider, but to keep things as simple as possible, I want to restrict this question to just the mash. Love your comment. Keep fighting the good fight. Terrence, listen, every day it's what I do. I wake up, I look at my lovely wife lying next to me, and I'm like, babe, I'm fighting the fight again today. This is how I live, baby. To answer your question, we got a few things going on here. Yeah, it's interesting when people walk into a situation like that, first brew gig, and everything's automated, everything's huge. It changes some things. So there's a few questions going on here, and let me pick away at them a little bit. In your opinion, is step matching superior to single mash infusion? I think depending on the beer that you're making, your raw materials, your raw ingredients, and what your goal is. I think that I think you can make a really strong argument for, some malts that we use are so highly modified that those steps might not make a huge difference. All right. But if you're going to be doing something like, the ferulic acid rest, because you're making, Bavarian style wheat beer, will that have an impact on your Hefeweizen? Probably would, probably might. I don't know. I'm not like a whiz with that, right? But do I think that you can potentially have, more stable foam, maybe be able to drive a level of fermentability that you can't with single infusion? Maybe. Those are some things. I think they are. How do I want to say that? I think they're ancillary points. I think they're secondary or tertiary. I'm going to say a lot of words I don't understand right now. It's not of primary importance to making a good beer. Okay. I think you might be able to drive home some very fine point nuance on some beers utilizing some of those techniques, but not everybody has access to them. So yeah, September and June, who has an opinion that I highly regard. Weinstefaner did something with the step mash versus single infusion, taste wise, extract wise. Try it for yourself if possible. Helles in can is a single infusion and bottle is step mashed. That's a treat right there. I would be so into that. I think I remember maybe I think I remember discussing this before, whether it was online or offline, but that's a great one. So if you can pull side by side of those, that's something. Gosh, that's something that I would risk a few days of depression for. That would be interesting, or maybe it wouldn't be so interesting that it would be worth the depression. But gluten sensitivity be damned. Yeah, we did talk about it a while ago. That's kind of my take right there, and then potentially a really cool real world thing that you might be able to kind of side by side sample. Ultimately, you're talking about, if you want to make a drier beer, and you're looking at a step mash situation. Remember that the reactions that are going to be happening at lower temperatures are going to take longer. Okay, so if you're looking to make a very fermentable beer, and you are going to be step mashing it, and you're just thinking about fermentability, you're not worrying about protein rests or anything like that. Maybe think like low to mid 140 degree range F, and I think that's like 163 C for 30-45 minutes, and then you can ramp that up maybe into the mid 150s for another 15-20 minutes, and then get it up into your mash out temperature, around 162, or maybe that's 72 C. That's a guess, though. You might want to double check it, for 5 to 10 minutes, for your mash out. So if you want to do that, playing with it and try to get something really dry. If you want to go with something a little bit fuller bodied with a little bit more dexterous work, I would start those steps a little higher up, and shorten them up. Maybe start high 140s, then into the mid 150s, and then up to your mash out. So, but yeah, that would kind of be my take on it. It is a little bit of a it depends answer. So, but I very much appreciate the question. Next question is from Gerard Miller on YouTube. Gosh, we may have doubled up on this one, but I will answer it again, and just in case anybody is listening live and didn't hear the first one. Gerard Miller. So because there is a return loop from the HLT, we're talking about the sanitizing loop, sterilizing loop that we use at Sonder. Don't you get small debris from the things you are sanitizing back into the HLT? Or do you just dump the HLT sterilization loop water to the drain? I know you should have cleaned it beforehand, but an essentially sealed loop, over time, you think debris would build up, possibly contaminating the HLT loop. Yeah, man, you're absolutely correct. The SOPs that we do have in place, though, put us in a really good situation to not have to worry about chemical necessarily with our rinsing and other protocol before we actually hook equipment up to it. But yeah, I mean, there can be some of that. We do have periodic cleaning of the regular, or scheduled cleaning of those, and also the water in those tanks are tested weekly, and so we measure along multiple factors to keep an eye on the quality of that liquid. So yeah, but no, your thinking is spot on with it. So yeah. Ben's Brewing, I don't have a good answer for this, man. But you did ask, what kind of shelf life do you think is appropriate for unfiltered, probably properly packaged low DO beer? Maybe putting aside IPAs. We always have commuted 90 days for most products, 60 days for IPA. You can probably go longer, but what the best thing to do would be is to actually set up a sensory program on that, and start a catalog of beer that you can store. If there's anywhere where you can store it warmer than what it might be on the store shelf, and then track out from there. So set aside a 6-pack, taste it at, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days on out, right? And then that might give you a better idea of what you have going on there. But that would be my hunch with it. Just kind of a low. It might be a bit of a low tech way of handling that, but I think it'd be a perfectly acceptable way of figuring out what you want your parameters to be. Webdan, yeah, we have a whole catalog at Sonder of back beers and stuff like that. So yeah, that is something that we do. That is something that we do. Next question comes from the dear Esteban from Friendster. Yo, what roast malt do you like in Czech dark lager? Most of the stuff I'm seeing is 60% Pilsner, 25% Munich, 12% Cara Munich or Bohemian, and 3-ish% chocolate or Carafa Special. Now, this is a correspondence between a dear, lovely friend of mine in the brewing industry, the great and powerful Andrew Gallagher, head brewer of Linwood Brewing, and he's one of my buddies that will bounce recipes off of, right? And so he popped this question off of me today, and I gave him what I thought might be like a kind of a bad answer, but it was legitimately my take with it. And I'm going to be rebrewing the Munich Dunkel that I made at Cartridge, and I'm going to make some changes with it. I always made that beer with all the roast malt being dehusked roast malt, and I would use Carafa Special 2. I have a full brew day series on brewing Munich Dunkel over in the playlist section. So go over and check that out. It's a fun brew day. This one, my buddy is in filming me actually, and it's pretty interactive. To me, it's one of my favorite brew days. It feels most like we're hanging out making beer together. In my mind, it's one of my favorites. So, I always made that beer with dehusked, meaning that it would be less roasty, right? Because functionally what's happening with roasted malt is when you're using a dehusked roast malt, you're going to be pulling less astringency. You're going to be getting color with less of the burnt astringent character that can come with roasted malts. So what Andy is really pitching me here is, he said, should I be using chocolate or Carafa Special? So should he be using a true roast malt with husk, or should he be using a huskless malt? Do I want a smoother roast character, a more subtle roast character with all the color, or do I want to go roastier with this approach? Now, to me, I pitched to him what I essentially did with this newest iteration of a beer Cartridge makes called Prost. I'm going to be brewing this next week. Kind of like half batch size, so like a 15 barrel batch. And I'm really excited about it. This is gonna be the first time that I can step mash a lager, which is gonna be cool. I can do that. And I'm also going to be changing my roast profile on this. So notice Andy said that he wants to use 3-ish% of chocolate or Carafa Special. Husked roast malt and unhusked. What I ended up doing is I didn't just want to say, well, I'm making the exact same recipe. You know, making it on a different system, the beers would definitely be different, but I still wanted to do something with the recipe. And the beer Prost was always it's one of my all-time favorite personal beers that I make. That the Dunkel over at Cartridge, and I'm just a sucker for it. I just love the style. But I think I make a less roasty version of it. And the beer never did well in competition, and that was always the knock on it. They wanted more roast. And so I decided this time I'm going to split the roast portion of the bill between huskless and husked. So for instance, what I'm going to be using in this Dunkel, which needs a name, I need to come up with a name, I think, but I'm splitting it between Wireman chocolate wheat, which is huskless because wheat is huskless, and type 3 Carafa type 3. So that would be with husk. So I'm blending that up. So that's what I recommended to him. And that's one of the things that I would like to introduce, the concept that I would like to introduce to you is if you have that situation where you are making a style that's not supposed to be necessarily like a stout, like a big roast bomb, but you're using roast in a more subdued way, maybe for some color, maybe for some edges of roast. You can always go craft a special. So color, less flavor, less roast, less astringency. But also think about folding those two things together, right? Because there can be a middle road there too. So rather than going all husk, all unhusk, try folding those two together and see if you can pull some interesting nuance in those beers, right? If you want to feature one or the other, go for it. But that might be an interesting approach to it, a nice middle ground of actually blending that out. And that's why I suggested to Andy. And then he just went on to praise me so much in our text conversation today. And he told me like just what a great idea it was, how much he loved me, how much he misses me, how I've just made such a difference in his life. And I said, I know. So anyways, appreciate the question, Esteban. Next question is from K Daddy on YouTube. Thanks, Adam. What are the downsides to leaving the finished beer on the yeast cake through the lagering process? I have a Spike CF5 conical and mount a 2-inch triclover sight glass directly below the bottom butterfly valve. Following a soft crash, I dump/harvest the yeast by simply closing the valve and removing the sight glass. Not sure how much yeast is left behind, but I'm sure there is some. FYI, 5.5 gallon batches and sight glass volume of approximately 8 ounces. Well, I like this. The idea is once the yeast is done fermenting that beer and done cleaning up after itself, acetaldehyde and diacetyl, you do want to be getting that yeast off of your beer. You have a great opportunity to, you can actually bleed the yeast off the bottom of that. So I'm assuming you said that you have a sight glass and then you have to have a valve down there. You can put a triclover connection on that valve that goes down to maybe like a 3/8 diameter reduction or nipple or whatever. And the reason I'm talking about reducing that further is from the 2-inch down to the 1.5-inch valve, or even if it's a 2-inch valve down there, you want it reduced. You don't want to try to blow out 2 inches of a 2-inch diameter stream of yeast out of that. So you're using that as a reduction. So of course, all these parts are going to be cleaned and sanitized appropriately. Hook them up and then very gently burp that butterfly handle and leave that sight glass on there and wait till you see that yeast drop through down to beer. And then you might be interested to see on days consecutive after that, you might be able to go back to it every few days and continue to drop some yeast down that has fallen into that now sight glass for you, right? Now, I would say between every yeast dump, you would want to remove and clean all parts, clean the valve, right? Clean, resanitize, and leave it there, and then clean, resanitize again before you do another dump like this. But I would suggest you looking at it like that. And the main thing is you know, if you're on a pro size system and you have 1.5-inch tubing that you can be dropping to your drain, if you're just going to be draining the yeast, you know, you can feather that and whatever. I just like on a smaller volume like that, it gives you a little bit of layer protection. You don't want that diameter being so narrow that you're going to get it chunked up and plugged. But yeah, just some things to consider with that. Srivas, I have not looked at that reverse decoction method. That might be something I can check out. I have a feeling there's going to be some differences, but that might be a good question to post for me. If you're on Instagram, send me an Instagram DM, slide into my DMs, or put it as a question underneath one of the other videos that I have, and that'll be a good placeholder for me, and I can potentially do some research. Next question is from Fox Hat Brewery. That's Fox Hat, right? Yeah. Great information on all your videos. Thank you. How long is good for a diacetyl rest for a Mexican lager fermented at 55 with under pressure of 10 psi? Baja yeast. Does anyone make test equipment to measure it? So first of all, the best equipment is the nose. They do have equipment that measures it, but it is incredibly expensive. So what you will want to do is I can't. You gave me as much information as you can, but there's too many variables there, man. Your yeast health going in, blah 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 blah, and sometimes even when you think you have everything lined up, diacetyl is going to stick around a little bit longer than you might expect. So the main thing is you are going to want to be performing a diacetyl test. And what I currently do is I take a degassed sample of beer. So I get the carbonation out of it. I put it in a sealed vessel. I've done that with a Nalgene bottle with the lid on it, or a small sample cup with saran wrap and a rubber band over it. And then I heat that. I'm currently using 85-degree C water or 185-degree Fahrenheit freedom units water. And I let that sit in there, that small volume of beer, in that water bath for 15 minutes. Heating that sample will help to volatilize any of that butter flavor aroma that you're going to pull. And then you do full sensory on it. Smell, taste, and then also look for slickness on the palate. That's going to be your best tool. If you can get to be part of an off flavor tasting where they can actually tell you how many parts per million you're smelling and tasting, that can be a good guide for you too, because I think threshold might be 50 parts per million or parts per billion. I don't remember which one. But dig into that a little bit, and that might get you where you need to be. Also, I believe I have a video on conducting a diacetyl test as well. So you can dig back for that video a little bit in the search. All right. Good old question from K Daddy. Yeah, hold on a second. Next question comes from Frofin on YouTube. Great videos. One question. Would this water be considered de-aerated and be used as such in reference to the sterile loop video? No. When we are running the 85C water around in a loop, we do not count that as de-aerated water. When we want to make de-aerated water in the brewery, we will take water from the hot liquor tank into the kettle, boil it, run it through the heat exchanger into a purged vessel, carbonate it. That would be DA water. Okay. You actually want the boil on it. I don't know if it's completely necessary, but from a sterilization standpoint, and to get some extra assurance that you are having something that is de-aerated. I also know that you can run CO2 through that, what is traditionally an air stone or an oxygen stone on the exit point of your heat exchanger. That can be another thing, so you can get some carb on that baby on your way to the tank. But yeah, so that's my take. That's my take, Frofin. Appreciate the question. Oh, September and June. What would you do differently in your brewing career if you had the chance? I don't know why this question makes me feel emotional. Um, you know, uh, getting into the brewing industry has it's been good, and it's had its high points. It's had some intensely low points. Um, what the brewing industry has helped teach me, it's taught me a lot about myself. There's a period of time where I looked to my job in the brewing industry uh, for validation, for my self-worth, for the quality of the beer that I made and the awards that I would win for making beer. Uh, those were the things that defined me, as opposed to the husband I am, the son I am, the friend I am. Um, so yeah, I didn't mean to. If you're watching, if you end up watching this live, you might notice a pretty significant change in my demeanor. But I don't know. The question hits me pretty hard. What would I do different in my brewing career if I had the chance? Um, I can thank my brewing career for uh, offering me. When people talk about wanting to uh, grow in humility, um, humility usually comes through humiliation, right? I mean, it can be kind of it can kind of be the fastest path, right? Um, so what would I do differently? I mean, I wish I wish I was more of a man when I started brewing. You know what I mean? Like I wish I was more of a complete person when I started brewing, and I think the industry was one of the things that either served as a catalyst for bringing out those problems. Um, so yeah, but I mean, I wish I was I wish I was a more integrated person, entering the industry. Um, what would I do differently? I think I wish that I would have had better communication skills. Um, I wish I would not have been so ego driven. Um, yeah, I there was, and I think I do a good job. I think everybody wears a mask to some level, right? I think this might sound strange to say out loud. I connect with people pretty well, right? Um, and but yeah, I mean, despite the fact that I connect to people well and I could talk a pretty good game, my ego was pretty monstrous, you know, was pretty monstrous. Um, but I mean, big picture, I've had a lot of different jobs. I've learned something different at each one. Um, I'm legitimately better for every job that I've had. Every job that I've had has taught me something. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm glad I got into the industry. Um, and yeah, but no, I think I would have had, I should have had, what something I would have done differently. I would have had, and maybe you can see it in some of the content I make. I wish I would have had a career mentality sooner. And what I mean by that is brewing was how I was getting paid to make beer, right? But I wasn't doing anything to advance my career and advance my opportunities. I thought opportunity comes from me winning awards, and then that can be the case. But This channel is part of me actually seizing the idea that I'm going to be an active participant in my own career, right? You know, this is this channel is a lot of things, and one things that it is it's an online resume, you know, um, and this is something that I have a knack for, right? So it's giving me visibility in the industry, and that in a relatively positive way. So that's but yeah, I think maybe having a little bit more of career vision. Anthony Bourdain said in Kitchen Confidential that that there is times where he took the next job just because the title was better, and he could have stayed somewhere longer and learned more. I think there's stuff to be said for that too. So yeah, I didn't expect that question to hit me so hard, September, but it did. I appreciate you. I appreciate you asking the question. And a follow-up question, also from September and June. Can you speak? Pardon me. Can you speak to a specific moment in the beer world that made you realize that you were in the right place mentally and emotionally? I'll say it. I think with my last two experiences at Cartridge and at Sonder, it's I tell you what, working, and I was just telling everybody that would listen at work, Sonder has just been such a blessing. They I have a skill set that they appreciate and value. And I have a skill set that goes beyond the capacity to make beer. I have, and I'm going to preface this by saying that this is not said with the spirit of bragging, right? Because everyone has talents, and talents are meant to be used for others. And through that lens, they are gifts, right? So talents used well are gifts. So I'm not just trying to say like, this is an outward focused thing. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I have gifts and talents when it comes to leadership. I have a heart for other people. I want other people to succeed, and I have a knack for seeing more in other people than they sometimes see in themselves. And those things help to make me an effective leader. And they value that. They value my expertise on the beer side, but they value me as an overall professional. And that skill set is valued there, and it's really exciting. And so, like, honestly, I've never felt like a more integrated professional than I do here at Sonder, because I can scratch my itch for the passion that I have for beer, but more importantly, I can actually work with people and help facilitate their growth in the industry professionally. And that's very exciting for me. So that's actually happening for me right now, September. So yeah. Next question comes from African Twin on YouTube. That's a motorcycle reference, by the way. I had to Google it. Look it up yourself. That sounded more aggressive than I wanted it to. I need to hide this. African Twin on YouTube. Can I use a spunding valve to replace my classic airlock? You're going to get some different takes on this. If you can be guaranteed that you are not going to have a blow off that may clog that spunding valve and create a dangerous pressure situation, both for the vessel you are fermenting in and maybe for the quality of your beer, maybe you can. I know pressure fermentation is very big on the home side of things these days. I do know that there can be a link between full-on pressure fermentation from beginning to end with yeast vitality and repitching. And being that my lens is through the pro side, repitching is an invaluable resource for us. So I'll do anything I can to not risk yeast health. And so when I spooned or bung, it will be with 1 to 2 points of Plato left in fermentation. But that's going to be my number one concern, that if you are going to have blow off from a safety standpoint, if you are going to have blow off Kreuzen coming through, that I would be concerned about that actually plugging it up and creating a dangerous situation with your fermentation vessel. And from the flip side is there's potentially yeast ramification sides as well when it comes to repitching and whatnot. There is obviously the suppressed ester fermentation formation that can come along with pressure fermentation. So there's some variables to manipulate. So yeah, that would be my take on that, African twin. That's the first time question. Good to see you around. Next question. September's got me all like, he's gonna get me all inside my head here. He's asking me big questions. I might answer that the further we go here. Let's see. Next question is from Carl Brachter on YouTube. Brewer in learning here. I like that. That can be all of us, right? We're all brewers in learning. Maybe did I copy and paste this right? But is it necessary? Does doing as he says put stress on the yeast, which can introduce off flavors? My take is when a starter is made, the yeast are eating the sugar and oxygen in the wort and putting off CO2, which means the starter would have no oxygen. We don't say finished beer is oxidized, so why would we say a starter can be oxidized? So this is from a video where I was talking about starter wort, and maybe I could have been more clear. So think about September. That's not something to apologize about. You got me going on deep questions here. And honestly, sometimes when I post that stuff, people like that. Those are some of my most strongly responded to videos. So you asking me stuff like that is definitely welcome. So this is this idea of I said that you might want to be careful of putting an oxidized yeast starter into your batch of beer, or at least the volume of it, right? So the reason I'm saying that is because when I was making yeast starters at home, I was utilizing a stir plate, okay? And so I had my Boss little Erlenmeyer flask. I'd have my wort in there, stir bar, and I'll put it on the stir plate, put my yeast in, and start growing my yeast. There's only so much sugar in there for the yeast to consume, okay? So once the yeast is done consuming that sugar, you can keep spinning it and they'll stay up in solution. And you're going to continue to be adding oxygen to that because you're spinning it. If the yeast is no longer active, it's not going to sit there and reconsume it like it's growing, like it's in growth phase or something like that, right? So you can't actually oxidize that. You can't actually oxidize that starter wort. So the reason that we wouldn't say that beer is oxidized beforehand is because hopefully the volume of oxygen that the yeast is exposed to for the growth phase is appropriate to be consumed during that phase with no leftover, right? So that's what I was intending to talk about. So that is an area where you could be concerned potentially about oxidizing your starter and having some of that character get into the finished beer, because you're actually talking about the wort itself that you have oxidized. And some people, if you're doing a 5-gallon batch and you do a 2-quart starter, that's a decent portion of the batch size, right? Now it's not massive, but I mean it's a decent percentage. So like if I have that situation where I might have some oxidized wort that I'm adding, I want it to be as small as possible. So yeah, because even at 5%, I don't want 5% of that to be oxidized. Next question comes from Jay Spees on YouTube. Question on Schwarzbier. Have you played around with steeping your dark grains versus mashing them? I have played around this when I want a very pilsy type Schwarzbier. wondering if you have ever tried it at a pro scale. So yeah, there's different takes on Schwarzbier, right? Like there's some takes of, oh, it's black pills, right? So you could do something like basically make a pills build, right? And then you could use a dehusked product in the mash. Again, that would be to remove the roast character, some of the roast character, and have a smooth roast character to it rather than an astringent one, but you're getting your color. You could add Sinmar to the kettle, right? Which is just a like a wort derivative of Carafa Special products. You could do that. But you can make a very pillsy type. So if you are looking to go the color route, by minimizing the amount of time that is in the mash, that might be a good way to go. Some people say they cap the mash. They'll run their standard mash rest and then sprinkle the roasted malt on the surface and then sparge over that. Some people do that. Some people do it separately, like this is. I've done a mash cap version, but I've never done it side by side to know well enough how much that delivers. I typically just lean on the huskless products when I do want to be minimizing that character. But that is one more approach that you can use. But yeah, it's a good question, Jay. And I hope everything's going well. I think you've got some cool plans on the horizon. Always keep us in the loop. We love hearing when Adam Makes Beer listeners are either getting into the industry, opening their own places. It's exciting stuff. So let us know. Next question is from Scott Goebel. As a home brewer, I don't have the time constraints that a pro brewer has. However, I would like to ask, if you had a carboy full of ale and you drop it into a keezer at 34F from 69F, how long does it take to cold crash and drop the yeast out of suspension? I think you're probably going to see that beer is probably going to be cold in 24 hours. And then really, you're probably going to see the super majority of what you drop out in the first 24. But you're going to continue to get sedimentation over time, right? The colder you get it, if you get that down to 32 or closer to 0, you're going to get harder precipitation sooner, is my guess, at least from solids. Yeast can be tricky, and yeast can flock at different rates at different temperature ranges, and you might be able to dig up some information that's strain specific with that. But in general, going colder is better. Because it will help you to precipitate out chill hazes and to get that finished beer clear long term. So yeah, that's my take on it, Scott. The chat is popping off. September, literally, for you saying sorry, that's literally nothing to be sorry about. And I am actually going to answer one of the other questions because it's going to be a little bit of a time capsule. You're giving me the opportunity for a time capsule question here. Let's see. Next question is from St. Leonard's Brewing on Instagram. Hey, Adam, huge fan of yours. I really appreciate that you've answered a bunch of my questions already. He is Vlad Squared on YouTube. Welcome, Vlad. I'm the owner and founder of a 1,200-liter brew pub now. See, another one of the channel faithfuls popping off out there. I have a question regarding the lauter. My first runnings are beautifully clear, but it seems that during the sparge runoff, I am losing wort clarity. Is this normal? I don't use my rakes during runoff, and I keep an eye on gravity, pH, and don't over sparge. The wort looks good in the grant, but if I take a kettle sample when I'm at volume, it's no longer clear. It's definitely not chunks, just a cloudy wort. It feels like a husky tannin astringency. I'm not sure how I'm picking it up. Our crush is fairly coarse. It's almost like a grain bed collapse of sorts, but I'm uncertain. All I know is the first runnings are beautifully clear, but pre-boil kettle samples are not. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. So first of all, we followed up, and he's not having an issue getting necessarily finished beers clean or clear. Anything that he does, what a lot of other people use, he is finding agents in order to get his beer clear, things like that. So that all seems normal. I think probably what you're seeing is just some normal break starting to come out of heating that wort from mash temperatures up to boil temperatures. So yeah, I really wouldn't sweat it too much unless you're having clarity issues downstream, or if you're having other issues, and this is paralleling it. You did mention that you used the word astringency. I don't know if you're actually tasting that or tasting it in the finished beer. If you're having some astringency issues, it already says that you're tracking your pH. So you're probably in a good place there. But yeah, that's more my guess of what's happening for you. And yeah, that's my take on it. St. Leonard's, Vlad squared. But let me know how those beers are coming out. And let me know where you're at with it, because I'm interested. Next question. Ooh, I'm wondering, did I already answer this one? I like this one. From Srivas Nunez on Instagram. Dude, you were one of the people that got buried in the Instagram DMs. So I just found this question today so I can answer it. I wanted to ask you about your implementation process for reducing mash rest times, as this is something that could really increase efficiency in my brewery, efficiency from a time perspective. Specifically for brews like the one I did yesterday, which was a Japanese rice lager, where before each mash, I have to cook the rice in the mash tun for about an hour, then cool it down and mash in after that. Total 2 hours in the mash tun. So here's the deal. Sub out that full-on rice for rice flakes. Rice flakes will be pre-gelatinized, so they will already have gone through that boiling process, broken down, starches made available. That's what you're doing when you're doing that cereal mash there. And then swap that in. Just swap that into your mash and run it like normal. You might, depending on what your mash temperature is, you might need to extend that, do an iodine test or a starch conversion test. And it might be a good way for you to go. But yeah, I think that would be a great way to do that. Oh man, see, people are dropping these big picture questions, and I'm feeling emotional, baby. Who knows? We might get into both of them. Next question comes from, and my apologies for pronouncing names that are unfamiliar to me. There's never any offense mentioned. A question from Wal Belly on Instagram. Hi, Adam. I want to ask if it is possible to can condition beer after a month in a pressurized fermenter. I heavily underpitched Voss, 11 grams in 1 barrel of beer. That's a solid underpitch. And it dried out the fermentation after several days, but unfortunately, I had to keep the beer in the fermenter at 15 psi for a month due to some circumstances. Can I just put some priming sugar and let it sit at ambient to condition it? Thank you, and best regard from Indonesia. A couple of things here. You might actually want to pull a carb on that beer right now and see how much you actually have in there, because regardless of whether or not you might be at full volume, depending on or full CO2 saturation that you want, depending on what temperature that tank is at. But if you've had a beer cold in a fermenter at 15 psi for a while, you've got some serious CO2 built up in there. But let's just say that it's ambient or whatever. First of all, at that point, even with that, how vigorous Kveik yeast is, the time for it to drop out of solution, the fact that it's under pressure, and the fact that it's sitting there, your viability is probably very, very low. I would actually look at just trying to finish out the carbonation with head pressure if you need to, and then package. I mean, you could rack it into another tank with a pre-measured amount of sugar and then dose that with a yeast that is specific for bottle conditioning, and then keep that roused as you package those cans. That's an option. I mean, you could do that too, but you'd want to make very sure how much CO2 is in solution already in that fermented beer, and then how much additional CO2 you need to add. Cheers from Indonesia. Yeah, man, that's the direction I would take it. So appreciate the question. We are jumping over to the chat, and I'm gonna leave a bit of a time capsule question for myself. Next question is from September and June. Have you given thought as to where will Adam be in 7 to 10 years? Well, I'm going to talk about the channel, and I'm going to say this, and some people might be turned off by this answer, but I think I understand what this medium is that I'm using on some level and I'm speaking about YouTube. And I think I understand, I think I'm understanding why what I do works. All right. And this isn't a backpack thing again. Like I'm not, but like, so first of all, there's not a lot of this information being created, nor is it being created at the volume that I create it. Okay. So since May of 2022, we've released 600 videos on YouTube. Video is king. When you look at Twitter or X, 60% of that feed, which is built to be for text, is video. Video is everything. I connect well with people. I'm excited about what I'm doing. And generally, people don't think I'm a douche. Okay. And maybe they do, but then they just unsub or whatever. But I'm passionate about teaching, and what I'm doing, like it's a big volume of stuff, right? So like barrier to entry, anybody can do it, but it's not easy. Okay. And I'm over the hump as far as it goes. My goal with this channel is in the next 5 to 10 years, with the nature of how this is an apprenticeship type industry. Most people apprentice into the industry. In 5 to 10 years, I want to have facilitated or had a role in positive impact and educating the super majority of people that are brewing in pub type breweries, right? Because pub type breweries are a lot of the places that are doing, apprenticeship type things. The free content for pro brewing stuff does not abound. And I'm trying to make it abundant. And I know other people are going to get into the space. But as of right now, there's not a ton of it. I'm not saying that I think I can play that role because I'm so special. I'm thinking I can play that role because I understand how powerful this medium is. Video, the internet's forever. There's a lot of content out there, and I'm going to be making content for a long time. And things spread over time. And I love teaching. And that's where I see the channel in 7 to 10 years. I see the channel having the capability of really helping people make good choices about the industry, whether or not they want to be pro, whether or not they want to open a place, and maybe having made some people's days a little bit easier because I've made a mistake before. They're able to find out how I made the mistake, did something differently, and it made their workday better. that's what I think this channel can be in the next 5 to 10 years. I hope that it's a very fruitful platform for people to have access. Sometimes people use the term gatekeeper. Sometimes people can be a little secretive about things. I would like to play any role I can in making information readily available to people. So that's my take on that, September. Appreciate the question. And then let's see. That's awesome, Jamie. That's kind of you to say, but that's what I think it can be. That's what I think it can be, and again, not because I think I'm something special. I think that this platform is incredibly powerful, and I think I understand that. So, yeah. What else? Last. I'll take this question. Wevdan, you brew. What's your process for submitting beer for high-end competitions like GABF or World Beer Cup? You brew them knowingly you are going to submit those for competition, or see what's good, then submit as the deadline draws near. Generally, what I like to do is I don't believe in. Well, actually, I don't want to say that. I think I look for low categories, low entry number categories. I'd rather be competing with 50 to 80 people than 600 people. And then I think about what I think I do best. And then I spend a lot of time tasting that beer, not according to the style that I say it is, but finding the style that I think it actually is best described by. That's my process. And then as tight quality control as you always have with all of your packaging. So yeah. Next question. What time is it? It's 9:12. I'm taking this last question right here from the Honorable Jamie Tripp. I'm going to pretend that I'm spoonding and Vert and ask Adam if he values more what he's learned or who he's met. I want to talk on this just for a second because it's something that I really try to push myself to do today, and the channel has helped facilitate this. There was a long period of time where I let my career happen to me. Again, I thought awards would speak for me. This, that, and the other thing. And I started realizing more and more over time, I needed to be an active participant in my career. This is in part some of the reason why, one of the many layers of why I do what I do with the channel here. But I hate the term networking because I think it sounds super corny. I think it sounds really cheesy. But I tell you what, there's something to meeting people, and I have the advantage now. Like when I go to the conference, more people know what this dumb face looks like, right? Because I spam it all over the internet. I try to do it in a spirit of goodwill and like helpfulness and gratitude. And so I think that's one of the reasons I don't receive a volume of negativity, because there's so much negativity. I'm talking to you, the brewery Reddit. But it's interesting that the channel it's put me in contact with a range of people I probably never would have gotten in with anyways. And so there's utility to meeting people. I'm getting to have conversations I never had before. I'm learning things that I never have learned before. So yeah, I would just focus on that end of it. Your network, your group of trusted people, is very, very important. And I think the biggest key, and one of the reasons I think sometimes networking has a negative connotation in my name, in my mind, is because it sounds forced and it sounds false. One of my largest allergies in life is the salesperson that never stops selling, right? Like the person that you can't even have a conversation with because they're still selling, right? Um, it just seems so like non-genuine, non-personal, right? But I think there's a spirit where you can approach networking of hey, I'm passionate about beer, you're passionate about beer, let's talk about what we're passionate about, right? And listening and listening intently, like trying to understand what the other person's saying. And yeah, there's real value to that. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, I talk for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm putting a stop to this. Once again, much love to everybody in the chat, all the listeners out there. 3 new memberships today. Man, that really means so much. I really appreciate it. If you're looking for a way to support the channel and maybe get a little something back at the same time, Google that Adam Makes Beer. It's on my Instagram links. It's actually on my main page for YouTube, but if you search Adam Makes Beer merch store, you could probably find it as well. If you want to find a way to support me and have a little gear with it, if you look, I got the square logo Adam Makes Beer shirt. We've got hoodies in there. We've got cups. I'm going to have some new stuff. Pop it in there. Wear it around. Do that thing. So good to see everybody in here. People are signing off here at the end. K-Daddy, I don't even know you're in here, man. You're welcome. Jamie, Paul, all you guys, September, everybody here at the end. But appreciate all the support. A great thing you can do is if you have those beer loving friends, colleagues, get this information to them. If there's a video that you see that you love, post it places that you like online. Okay. Anything that you can do to magnify that footprint of this thing is very, very helpful to me. So anyways, stay tuned for an amazing interview with my friend from Beechwood Barbecue, Julian Trago. Next week, drop questions for it. I'm going to be putting some posts up for it. Yeah, stay up with it, everybody. Listen, winter's almost over. The Australians, your weather is a separate thing. But this time of year it can be a drag for people. So try to be good to yourself. I've been trying to eat right, trying to get good sleep, trying to do my thing. So take care of yourself so you can take care of your people. Appreciate you all, and I will be seeing you next week when I talk to Julian Trago from Beechwood Barbecue. Have a great day, everybody.